You guys want to know? You guys want to know what Amish dating is like? Are you sure? Juicy, juicy. So I've shared a little bit of my story growing up Amish in a video called "Growing Up Amish," from the age of birth to 16, and then I've shared my experience in Rumspringa, which is from the age of 16 to until I moved out here, but usually until you get married. Now, during that period of Rumspringa, that is when you do what is called dating. Um, and and once again, I'm going to clear up the Rumspringa thing here. Rumspringa is just, in our community anyway, it meant different stuff in different communities, but in our community, it meant that you were now 16 and you were kind of on your own. You could do whatever you want, um, and you were now allowed to date. You were old enough to date. Most guys waited till they were older, but girls usually started, a lot of times dated from 16 on. Um, but Rumspringa in our community didn't just mean to go party and be wild. The people who joined the youth stayed and kind of just stayed Amish, kept their horse and buggy in their Amish clothes. They were also considered being in Rumspringa, but they didn't party. So there's just different definitions, I guess. And so I'll share what it was like dating for us. Now, in other communities, more stricter communities, there's different ways. So in some of the stricter communities, what most people did was they had singings on Sunday evenings. Usually whoever held the church service, since church services are held at home in a house, you can go watch that video. I have a video on that. Can't remember what it's titled. But they have all the benches and everything there. So what they do is sometimes they'll host a singing, what's called a singing in the evening, Sunday evenings, where youth in those communities of 17 will show up and they'll sing. The boys sit on one side, the girls on the other, and they'll just sing hymns and stuff. And then after that, if you want to date a girl, this is really weird to me, but if you want to date a girl, your buddies would ask her out for you, and you would take her home from the singing in your buggy. And you would usually you would go to her house, from the way I understand it, and you would talk with her on the couch. Sometimes she would be allowed to sit in your lap, I think all night. And then you would come home early morning. And in a lot of those communities, sex would definitely not be allowed. In the Swartentruber Amish communities, they would do what is called bundling, I guess. Once again, I don't I'm all like, this is just kind of new stuff to me that I'm hearing. But you would take that girl home, I guess, from the singing, and you would actually go to bed with her for hours until the morning and hug, kiss, roll around. I'm pretty sure other stuff happened. How much? I don't know. Eli Yoder just interviewed Ezra Shetler, an ex-Swartentruber Amish person where they talked about this a little bit. And I found it very interesting and very mind-blowing. So go watch that video. It's Eli Yoder, Ezra Shetler. I'll put the link in the description box below. But in our case, dating was a little different. I think now it's even more different. I'm not sure how they do it now. But when I turned 16, when I entered that Rumspringa phase, what you would do is you would ask a girl out, and if you're younger, you were probably chicken, so you would send a buddy and you would ask her for a date for 2 weeks in the future, like, because you would usually ask him on the weekends, and you would ask him for for 2 weeks later. Why? I don't know. I don't know why it was 2 weeks later. Sometimes it wasn't always 2 weeks later. Sometimes the next weekend or whatever, and sometimes even the guys, if they were confident enough, they would go during the week and they would knock on the girl's door and they would ask her. She would come to shoot. They would ask, hey, is so and so home? and that girl, the mom or whatever, whoever answered the door would go get that girl, and she'd get all nervous, and the guy is, obviously nervous, and she would come to the door, and he would ask her, will you go out with me on a date? And there is, anytime you ask a girl, the guys were super nervous because there's always the chance of rejection, and the girls, obviously a lot of times said yes because they felt like they should. They didn't want to, but they did. They didn't want to say no, because it's awkward. They were put in that position. Like, I don't really want the guy, but I don't have a reason to say no. So, I felt bad for him every time they even had to tell me no. Right. So you would ask the girl out, and if she would say yes, then you would, it'd be the next weekend or 2 weeks out. And in the meantime, everybody in the community finds out that you guys have a date. Right. So you get a lot of teasing, you get a lot of, there's even a lot of pressure. Like, everybody's like, oh, I hope it works out. And, but yeah, a lot of teasing. But yeah, anyway, so the guy usually picks up the girl. Now, a date at that time lasted from Saturday night to Sunday night. Where that tradition started, I'm not sure. But what would happen is I had a car. Other guys may have just had a horse and buggy, but you would usually around 6 o'clock Saturday night, chewing on hair. But on Saturday night, usually around 6 o'clock, you would go pick up the girl. And you would park your car, you would go knock on the door, and, somebody would answer, and you would walk in. The girl's waiting up in her bedroom for you. And you would walk in, up the stairs. A lot of times, her family's really curious what her date looks like and all of that. So they're like hiding or sitting in the living room, and you got to walk past them. But you would go up to her room and awkwardly, usually hi, whatever, and you would grab her bag because she would have a bag packed for the night, right? And you would carry the bag, and you would take the girl downstairs to your car, obviously. Maybe sometimes you would chat with the family a little bit and say hi and introduce yourself. Not all the time, sometimes. I think a lot of times the girls would tell their families to disappear. Like, don't be around when he shows up. It's just a lot of, like, there's so much stress and so much, I don't know. It was just really awkward a lot of times. But anyway, you get in the car, and you would usually double date a lot of times. Not always, but sometimes. And you would go eat out. And maybe, go bowling. This was in northern Indiana. So there wasn't like a whole lot to do. But you would go, eat out, bowling, maybe in movies. I always thought that was stupid. Why spend time when you're getting to know a girl? Why do you want to be at the movie theater? And then a lot of times you would go hang out with other groups, parties, whatever it is, and drink. And a lot of times for us, there was drinking involved. Obviously, with the ones that stuck with the horse and buggies, there wasn't. Those people that usually, I think, went out to eat, usually they would have to stick locally to the local little restaurants in town. I think this was the Clinton youth. I don't know. I'm not sure. I wasn't a part of the Clinton youth, so I can't say for sure what they did. But then they would probably just hang out at friends' houses. We would go partying, or what we did, was cruising by girls who were sitting up. We would go from place to place, and then when it was time to go to bed, a lot of us slept in the same bed, but not necessarily had sex. I know that sounds foreign. I'm sure some did, but in my time, a lot of the Amish girls were strong enough to be like, nope. So yeah, you stayed the whole night. There's always the case where the girls would, it's probably especially in the Clinton youth, where they slept in separate rooms. The guy, they just slept in separate rooms. It sounds really, it's just a bad way of dating. Just a horrible way of dating. I do not know where this tradition started. And then you would wake up the next morning, and usually the girl would make breakfast if you're staying at her house. even if you're not staying at her house. A lot of times, if there was double dating, um, the girls would make breakfast for the both guys or whatever. Maybe that's how the Clinton youth did it. They double dated and the guys slept in separate rooms, and I don't know. I think with the Clinton youth, the horse and buggy, they couldn't just go anywhere, right? So I think a lot of times, that when they were double dating, the girls would wake up and make breakfast for the guys and stuff. Uh, for us who were with the car youth, we might go out for breakfast more so. We'd go out Sunday mornings and we'd have breakfast. Sometimes you'd end up going to church. Um, us and with the car youth, we didn't go to church a lot, but every once in a while, if it was at somebody we knew's house, we would go. Uh, we'd come in later, after all the singing was done. We'd come in, we sit there for the preaching, and then after church was over, we would leave. But yeah, and then Sundays usually is when when you went out to the movies, the movie theaters, you'd watch a movie, you'd go hang out with other people. Usually there wasn't a party Sunday nights. And you just hang out and go out to eat again. And then Sunday nights you would take her home and you would carry her bag back up the stairs. And, her family usually was there. But you would sit up in her room and you would talk and make out a little bit or whatever. And this is weird to talk about. And if you wanted to pursue dating further, you would ask her again. And then you would ask her I want to take you out again. Would you be willing in 2 weeks? And of course she said either yes or no. And all is good. The guy would walk back out Sunday night, 10 o'clock, whatever it may be, and go home because he's got to work the next day. That was the procedure. It was you picked her up Saturday night and you dropped her off Sunday night. Like I've said, I don't know. I don't know where this started. I'm guessing it started with horse and buggy. You can't drive 12 miles to a girl's house to pick her up and then another 5 miles to town to eat and then back to her house another 5 miles, and then drive the 12 miles home like that. Not with one horse, right? So maybe that's why if they wanted to spend more time, they decided to do Sundays, and it started out where, that they slept in separate rooms and all that, and now the car youth picked it up. You started getting cars, and that Saturday to Sunday tradition stayed, but now we're partying and drinking, and we sleep in the same bed. I don't know. I don't know if that's how it all started. I hated the 2-day thing because, you ask a girl out and you don't really know her, and if it's really awkward, it's not just awkward for one evening. It's awkward for a day and a half, and especially with me, I was very insecure. And it just, I don't know. For me, I would have preferred like it was in the movies, right? You show up at her door, you pick her up, maybe with flowers in the hand, you meet the parents, you take her out to eat, you go hang out in a park somewhere, something, whatever, and then you bring her home at a certain point when her parents want her home. I don't care if she's 20. Her dad, if she's living at home under her dad's supervision, then I think he should be having a time period that she needs to be home. He is responsible for her protection, right? And in the Amish community, there's so much pressure. It wasn't even fun really to date because by the time you hit your mid-20s and you're still dating and haven't found a partner, you work with 70 other Amish guys in a RV factory, and they all know, maybe even more than 70. They all know that you have a date, and they're romantics at heart. Them and their wives and everybody in the community, they want it to work out for you. And it just puts so much pressure on you that you're just like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if this doesn't work out? And what are people going to think? And it shouldn't be like that. It should have been just go out, have fun, and that's it. And if it's cool, do it again. If not, no big deal. It wasn't like that when, or at least from my point of view, when I was in that dating period. So typically what you would do is you would date a girl 6, 7, 8, 9 times, 10 times, and so that would be, every 2 weeks. And then you would see her in between weekends usually. You just go find where she's at and you hang out. And then you would ask her to go steady. So then and if she says yes, that just means that you are now boyfriend, girlfriend. And after, going steady for a year or two, whatever, you ask her to marry you, and then you set the marriage date, which is usually like a year ahead of time, and you would get married. In that time, though, after going steady, most of them will join the Amish church and become baptized members of the Amish church, so there is no leaving. And if you happen to break up after you've joined the Amish church, you're a member of the Amish church and single. And, there's quite a few of those people too, or then you just date somebody else and until you find the one you want to marry. And I've listened or heard or talked to a lot of Amish married couples now that they just, on the first date, they knew this is it. This is the partner for the rest of their life, and it's funny how that all works. Cause I've heard of people it was kind of love at first sight, and it took a couple months, and then the guy finally asked the girl, and the girl already knew I want that guy, and this is it. Then I've heard of other stories where, like my brother and sister-in-law, where she thought my brother was very arrogant and just didn't want him at all. And then he asked her out, and for some reason she said yes. But then she knew this is it. So it's crazy how that all works. But so yeah, that's how it was done in our community at the time I was at that age. It was changing drastically as I was getting older. I think kids more or less just kind of started hanging out and hooking up at parties, and then they were boyfriend and girlfriend. There wasn't any official dating going on. I don't know if that's still how it is now. Like I said, this is our community. All communities are different when it comes to dating. Go check out that video done by Eli Yoder. Crazy. It's crazy. And I'll be doing a video on what Amish weddings are like. And believe me, they do them right. They are awesome. So make sure you're looking for that one. Subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified of future videos. Make sure you hit the like button, share these videos, guys. Comment below. Tell me what your thoughts are on that dating style. What you agree with, what you don't agree with. I am CJ. This is the Amish Potato. And we'll see you next time.